This is Nomadic Addicts Outdoor Podcast.
Where the beer is cold
and the pistachios are hard. Let's tell our tales.
All right, Tanner, Nathan, and Corey back again. Today we're doing our first virtual podcast. We got Tom
Kaczmarek.
Sorry. But if you want to go right in, you can, tell us a little bit about you and how you got started into hunting and that.
Yeah, so from New York, born and raised upstate New York, Genesee County area. I've been hunting now for about 25 years. I was about 25, 26 years old when I first got into it. Pretty much self-taught, nothing special. Grinded a lot of public land when I was young and didn't know much. Realized I had one heck of a passion for it, not only to begin with, but once I got that first taste of a buck, it was like a healthy heroin, right? And I couldn't stop. And though many say, "Oh, I love hunting; it's all I do," my wife and friends can attest to you. You've never met anybody like me. 365. It's all I do. It's all I think about. It's all I plan every spare minute. And unfortunately, 99% of my vacation time is spent in a tree or in a food plot rather than with my family. I should.
I think we can all relate to that pretty good. Yeah. Yep. So you pretty much, you were self-taught though. You literally just did you start out bow hunting mostly, or was it more gun?
Yeah. So, I still have very little interest in the gun, right? To me, a gun is an opportunity I should take advantage of. But, a couple of buddies of mine that were younger than me, a couple of years younger than me, one kid had been bow hunting all his life since he was 10 years old. And I seen that. I was 25, 26 years old. So I remember my dad asked me, "Yeah, what do you want for Christmas?" I said, "You know what, Dad? I'd really like to try this bow thing out." And so my dad went down a local mom and pop sporting goods store, specialized in guns, not archery. And they had an antique Browning round wheeled bow sitting there. And my dad picked it up for me for Christmas for $150. And man, that was back. It was all steel sights, big adjustable pin, all steel, a little flipper, arrow rest, and aluminum arrows. And I got to tell you, from the day after Christmas, when I got it set up, I shot that thing every day, 50 arrows until deer season. And it was weird. It's like I needed every dog needs a squirrel, squirrel to chase. And for some reason, that bow became my squirrel.
Yep.
There was that tritium on the pin. I had to get that pin with the tritium that glowed in low light. I didn't have any vacation time at work, but I took a week off of work unpaid. I think, like I said, I was 25, 26 years old, just to go and sit in a field on a pile of leaves, just hoping a deer would come out. And after a week long of sitting, finally I had a doe, and I was sitting behind a pricker bush. Like I said, it was pretty much my first experience, and after that I was kind of hooked, and then I just kept crushing little public stuff. I didn't know nothing, man. Absolutely nothing. I'm, throwing up a tree stand. I got pegs in my back pocket and a 50-pound hang-on stand on my back, and a backpack full of pegs, and I'm screwing them in at 5 o'clock in the morning, trying to get 15 feet up in the air, and just crushing it, just crushing every minute of it. And was I successful? Yeah, if I put in 100 hours, I'll get a crack at something. And in the typical New York fashion, if it looked like a deer, it was getting shot, and it was home in the back of my car at the time.
I got a question off that. Did you ever have like a mentor or somebody you looked up to, or just reading things? Was there anything that you did that did help you learn more about it, or were you just 100% go in the woods and just try to figure it out.
Like, what brought you to hunting, Tom?
So there wasn't really a mentor, and a friend of mine, a lifelong friend, he had gotten into it a little bit, and he had had a marginal success on public, and I thought that was cool. From hanging around with a couple of friends that hunted, we were friends, but also their hobby. A couple of those guys was hunting with a bow. I thought it was really intriguing, so that kind of started the journey as to what you were asking. I would pick their brains. I'm very curious by nature, so I would pick their brains, learn everything I could from them. And then you pedal back 25 years ago, the internet wasn't a thing. Instant information wasn't a thing. So it was magazines. It was picking their brain. It was finding a place that rented VHS tapes, old time, with very little instruction, mostly just kill videos, picking up things of that nature. And I'll give you a funny quick story after that. What really got me addicted to the crack cocaine. But and it's only gotten worse over time, right? So there was no particular individual, but I consume all the information I can. Deer and deer hunting is probably, I'd say, the best in the industry when it comes to good information.
I was going to ask that actually. What you thought, like right now, who or what platform or whatever, who is the person that you would listen to and
Right.
say that, yep, they're
This guy
spot
knows
on,
his shit.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
So especially for us, I think after 25 years of crushing as much information as I possibly can from all aspects of media, I have to go back to a guy, Jim Brocker. And I think you and I spoke about this before, extreme whitetail habitat or
Yep.
extreme. It's like an ebook he calls it. He sells for like $20. What we do here in New York is unique. Like we spoke of earlier, the pressure, the amount of hunters per square mile. We spoke earlier about the land that I hunt. New York, Michigan, Pennsylvania is amongst the highest hunter density, and they quote that at around 14 hunters per square mile. The square mile, the block that I hunt, I can easily get up to 25 guys on that square mile block that I know of. And yes, there's a handful of guys that'll pass deer, but 90% of those guys, and it's their right, brown down. Hey, if it's a buck, if it's a small buck, if it's whatever, it's brown down. I respect that. Everybody gets a tag. Everybody's at different levels. They can do as they please. But and then that's where this guy really shined. Watching all the guys throughout the industry from everybody's on a real tree and Lee and Tiffany and all that, and there's very, very little to gain other than kill and sit on this food plot where I have absolutely zero pressure, and there's 1,000 deer a night in my food plot, and there's no pressure for miles, and I can grow a deer. I can grow a deer quite well, things of that nature. That's not us, man. That is not us at all. So I had to come up with a different way or different people to get my information from. The hunting public over the last few years, man, if those guys were around when I was young, it'd be a different story.
Yeah. They're
I've seen, I don't hunt. I talked to you about it. They're across the street from me. Deer way bigger than what I kill are across the street from me. But now I'm old and lazy. I'm 50 years old. I'm fat.
So Tom, I got a question for you back to when you started hunting, and you said you weren't as successful with necessarily killing, but were you successful learning from trial and error while you were hunting and learning? Were you taking a lot away from that, or were you just like, man, I don't know what I'm doing wrong?
So, I'll tell you a little story on that too. So I was so enamored by hunting that, like you just spoke about. Everything I did, whether it be good, bad, indifferent, I learned. So yeah, I learned at least as much from failures, from bumping deer, from educating deer, early on. But my desire to get better and do better. I'll never forget the first buck that I shot. A friend took me to a public spot that he knew of, put me in a stand. After I got done stepping over the 47 beer cans he had underneath his stand, I'd take my climber a few yards away to where I'd seen a deer the day previous, and I shot a 1.5-year-old 7-point buck. And to me, that was a 200-inch deer.
Yep.
And enamored by the process and so on and so forth. And it kind of just got me really hooked. But most importantly, the learning curve. You never stop learning. And, whether you guys have just gotten into it or you've been doing it for 10 or 15 years, you never stop learning. You never know everything. And every day, everything you do, every deer you see in the field, you're always learning something. And it never stops. And I don't mean to say it to be rude, but when I milked my friends and my peers for everything I could, I had to expand. When I milked that particular platform for everything I could, I had to look deeper and look deeper and look deeper. And it sounds silly, but YouTube's
huge.
Crush 200 videos in a week on YouTube to pull out something I didn't know or something that makes sense. But I just keep going back to these guys in Michigan that are really on top of, like we live, the pressure, the insane pressure, hunting mature deer. It's a different animal than the deer you see every day, especially if you find one mature 5-6-year-old buck and you're focused in on him. There's no hunting, I don't think, like that. Something about building a relationship and getting psychotic over that deer and hunting it down and learning it and launching a full-scale FBI, CIA investigation on that animal.
I know you got a lot of good point and have history with them, but one thing I want to emphasize is that you said to always keep growing. Go as far as you can on something, learn as much as you can, go to the next thing. I feel like a lot of people, they get to a point and they're like, all right, that's good enough. And then they level out, they stay there, but you have to keep growing and keep climbing if you want different results.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, that's kind of like life too. We think we're the way that we are and everyone's the same or similar, but, I like to drive no matter what I'm doing. I like to be a little bit better, a little bit, just keep going and going and going. From the first couple of deer that I killed, some of them were spikes and I was still tickled pink. Man, I had a buck. So, I understand a lot of these younger hunters, or I also understand hunters that have been doing it for 20, 30 years and they're enamored by a spike horn or a fork horn. Maybe that's where their growth kind of, came to a halt, which is fine. Hey, man, that's your thing. But me personally, I just want to do better and better and better, and now I've evolved into a different space. I was lucky enough to marry a woman that her dad was a farmer, and we just recently acquired some of his land to manage and a couple other small spots that I hunt. And now it's like a different phase of hunting for me. I get to expand rather than just hunting down a random animal. I get to lure him. I get to run the property, the paths, the transitions, the sanctuary. I get to manipulate the habitat and the deer, which is, it's good and it's bad, right? So I'm limited by what my property holds and what the people kill around me, which is a lot. I'm limited by just a little off piece here real quick. I think one of the most important things you could do if you own your own land is day 1, post. Day 2, post. And about 20 days every consecutive year, post. 4 guys arrested in the last 2 years on my property that I know of.
Wow.
Say that again. What?
4 guys arrested in the last 2 years off the property that I hunt, and that's just what I know of.
Jeez.
But funny story, just a quick funny story. I'm sitting watching a food plot, big food plot that I got in a sanctuary, hidden food plot. Pretty good. It's about 15 acres that the farmer abandoned. It was very, very poor ground. So I'm watching these deer in the morning time. Just went out there for something to do. Very easy hunt. Sneak in, sneak out. Don't bump nothing. Don't educate. I was kind of looking for a unicorn. There's nothing I really wanted to kill. So just kind of waiting on a unicorn to come by. But as these deer are walking off of my field, of my food plot, just after dawn, they're getting to the sanctuary, which is just off the side of the food plot. I hear a bang. Call my neighbor. Hey, you out hunting? No, I ain't hunting. Man, that's crazy. I just heard a bang over here. Whatever. 20 minutes later, another bang. I go, God, geez, my God, that's close. So to make a long story short, I get out of the woods. I hop on my 4-wheeler. I run back on the neighbor's property, and I just turn the 4-wheeler off. I'm sitting there looking through a park-like hardwoods, and I see guys dragging 2 bucks out of my sanctuary. A button buck and a little 2-year-old out of the sanctuary. I literally a super little 2-year-old. I took some video of him, but yeah, and that was, same thing all the way around. He was coming from a couple properties over. He was passing by his own posted signs through the neighbor's property, deep into my property, to shoot the deer in the sanctuary as they were coming off the field.
Yeah, that'll piss you off.
Few of those guys, that's worse than a pack of wolves living on you.
Yeah.
So Tom, could you give us a tip that you do for early season and a tip that you do for late season, something that you kind of strategically do?
Yeah, absolutely. Early season is when I kill, I'd like to say 80% of my target bucks. I kill in early season, if not the first weekend, the second weekend. After that, I'm done. I'm hunting secondary, third string spots, hoping for a unicorn buck to pop out that I didn't expect. But early season, I flood an area with cameras, right? We were talking about the other day. I'll use a lot of cameras, and they're not expensive cameras. They're the cheapest cameras I can find. Refurbs from Moultrie, refurbs from Browning, and I'll flood an area to get a good inventory. And I want to say maybe 8 out of 10 years, it's been pretty gosh darn successful. 7 or 8 out of the last 10 years, that's been pretty successful strategy. But when you come to the rut, now once again, all I really focus on is bow. I find the biggest, most mature buck. I prefer to only take 1 buck, and hopefully that's with the bow. My secondary plan, if all else goes awry, is the gun. And I don't want to say it's a crapshoot with the gun, but there's not. My 13-year-old, my 12-year-old last year can do well with the gun, so it's not much of a challenge if my little daughter can do it. Archery tackle and getting close to an animal, that's different. So yeah, early season, the first weekend or 2 of season, I usually get what I want. I'm usually just about useless when it comes to the rut and mid-season. I won't go into the property. I won't go deep into the property. I won't push those areas. I hunt first and foremost anti-pressure and anti-education. My next step is to hopefully kill an animal. Then you only have a couple of shots in a stand or an area when you're hunting those mature animals. So you want to make that count. Between the moon guide, obviously the wind first and foremost, the moon guide, where's his pattern at? Is it mid-season? Is he, mid-archery season? Is he still in the thickets? Is he still spending all his time around his bedding area? I won't go in there and hunt him, period. I just will not do it because there's a high risk of me educating, bumping, or stinking up that area and driving that deer off of me. So back to your original question, a tip for an early kill: information, education, slip in when the time is right. You got a few hunts in a stand or a small area, and you're pretty much done in that. As far as late season, once again, I won't go deep into the bush. I won't go into bedding, which a lot of guys talk about around here, especially on private. I'm surrounded by an army. The last thing I want to do is send my best guys out,
Right.
at their age to get whacked by that army. And you guys know 1-year-olds, I've had
Oh
some
yeah.
super 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds. Man, I'll do everything I can to give those deer everything that they want, and just pray every day that they don't step off the property. A few years ago, hell, I had 3-4 guys sitting right on the property line, all facing me. I'm a nice guy. I don't say nothing. It is what it is, But yeah, they can be your worst. Now, when it comes to late season, if I can't find my guy, a few years ago, there's a deer up here. I think it was 155 as an 8.
Jeez.
I couldn't get on him with the bow, so I had to wait till gun. And actually, I'll tell you, it's kind of tough. I knew where he'd come and what he would do, but it took me 3 or 4 sits before he would step out into my food plot. And then when he did, it was, obviously 100 yards, took him down. But I don't know, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
Do like Ohio or Iowa. It's a couple days gun here, a couple days gun there. That'd be a perfect world for me up here.
Yeah, we've been preaching on that for the last however many podcasts we've done, that our gun season's first of all way too long, and then I know we kind of wanted to talk about our antler restrictions and stuff, so we can kind of save that. But those are big things for us. But what so you're in the early season. If you do have a deer that you got pegged, you're mostly sitting on food. Then at that point, you're waiting for the right wind, the right conditions, and then sitting on the food. Or are you more on so you're not touching the bedding at all? So you're not even on the fringe of the bedding then at that point, really? Well, I guess you kind of would be if you're kind of on the edge of the food, right? So
it's more transition. I rarely am successful sitting on food, but I'll tell you what you do when you sit on food is either when you're going up or coming down, there's a very good chance that there's deer there. So I try to stay a bit off of food. Even late season food plots, like I was just talking about, I shot the deer over the food plot. My daughter shot a couple deer over the food plot. I have 2 stands set up for 2 different wind directions for my young daughter. And it's something I did for me, but works out well for her too. Both are 110% shrouded. I can walk in these areas, not bump deer, not cross deer paths. One of them is 100 yards. I sneak up an itty bitty path that's all tight and closed off up into the back of a blind with deer 20 yards from me, and they'll never see me. And then at the end of the night, where there could be, I think I sent you some videos, man, there could be 60, 70 deer food plot, and I slip right out of the same blind without bumping a single deer. And I also have a different wind direction, which I'll tell you what, they're an absolute nightmare. The other stand on the same area is I cut a sneak path all the way through the woods rather than walking up the field edge, a sneak path through a hedgerow and through a thicket, just to sneak up in that stand, just to set their entrance and egress. There is nothing more important. And once again, that goes back to the guys in Michigan. Your egress can ruin a hunt before you get there. And the other big thing too is people think you're sitting in a tree, a deer blows at you. Oh my God, I just got busted by a deer. I won't see that deer anymore. Dude, that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. 1 deer blowing at you, 2 deer blowing at you, stomping. You educate another 20, 30 deer on your path. And I'm sure you guys have seen it. You could just about have a helicopter drop you off in your stand. And if a mature doe, or even a younger doe or a 2-year-old buck comes across a path that helicopter took in the air, he'll put his nose to the ground and know that you're there. Through molecules that come off that damn helicopter. They're incredible animals.
And that's a really good point, because a lot of the times people, like you're saying, see and hear the deer blowing at them, and those are the ones that you know of. Like you're saying with the trail, you're educating all these deer that you have absolutely no clue are even there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. After you leave, you're looking at 2 weeks before, and under normal circumstances, maximum a couple of weeks before your scent truly disappears to a mature animal. Right. And once an animal hits, a deer hits 3, 4, especially 4 or 5 years old or better, they have mastered the art of staying away from wolves. And you're a wolf. No matter what, at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. You're a wolf. Whether you're in the area, whether you were in the area, they're making a mental note of you, just like you make a mental note of them. And so you got to be super, super conscientious of that. And there is nothing on the market. There's no fancy clothes. I've used them all. There's little to no difference. There really isn't. I think I hunt with, man, some of the cheapest stuff you can get at this point. My camel might be 20 years old. Do I use some scent products? Yeah, I think it makes me feel better more than anything.
Same. That's me. Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's me.
Scents,
You ever run ozonics or know much about ozonics?
Yes, I occasionally run ozonics. I think I've had more deer booger than not on it.
Mm.
If you're to use it in the Midwest, it could probably be a good thing. Around here, I've had more deer booger, especially mature deer. When you 5-year-old, yes, it puts out some super oxygenated oxygen molecules to scrub all your scent, but it too has a scent.
It's foreign to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so you're mainly not too much worried about like the scent control and all that. You'd rather have the right wind, the right entrance and exit is way more important, is what you're trying to say, right?
Absolutely. Now, I do mitigate that with activated carbon. I leave my boots in a bin, always full of activated carbon. I dress clean at the house. I have a separate washer and dryer to wash my clothes to get them as scent free as possible.
A whole separate washer and dryer just for your hunting clothes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know how many?
So I don't, but I did, and I've listened to, and I don't know how people have different opinions on him, but John Eberhart with the whole scent control thing, he's a freak about it, right? But he did say he's like he has a separate washer and dryer. Obviously, I don't, but he said to make sure you run towels or whatever through before you run it and stuff. And there is a lot of good information out there about stuff like that. So
yeah. It's the molecular level. I guess we refer to it as fabric softeners, conditioners, soap, this, that, and the other. Hell, you put on some deodorant in your work shirt and then you wash it in the washer and you use scent-free detergent, so you think you're doing that little bit of deodorant is going to leave a couple molecules. Dude, they're going to bust you clean. They're going to it's clean possibly be. They're going to bust you anyway. So the more I can do to mitigate it, the better I'm helping myself for a few. Maybe I can squeeze 4 hunts out of that stand instead of 2 if I really, and that's the buck's core area at a certain point. So if I can get 4 instead of 2, beautiful. I'll mitigate it.
Yep. Yeah, that's me. It's more of a head game and like trying to mitigate it more than anything. So I try to do as much as I can with it, I feel like, and I think a lot of people do. I know, but it's just, you just can't completely get rid of all of it.
I got one more question before we move on. It's kind of off topic, but I just got to say it or else I'm going to end up forgetting it. Now, like on the properties that you do hunt, you were talking about your deer praying every day that they end up making it after gun season.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think that your R&R is, like your recruitment and retainment on bucks on your property?
Man, that's a great question right there. So there's 2 different answers to that. In general, if I pass, let's say I pass hypothetically 5 3-year-olds and 1 4-year-old, I got about a 20% chance of seeing one of those 4 deer back again the next year. Now let's say in an odd year, all 4 of those deer show up as a 5-year-old and 3 4-year-old deer all show back up next year, which has happened a couple of times. Them deer staying on me throughout the entire season, maybe 1 or 2 of any of those will stay with me for the entire season. Maybe 1 of those is actually living on me where I can focus and plan a hunt on him. Last year, I'll tell you what, last year was one of the craziest years I've ever seen. I personally attribute it to the insane amount of massed crops and apples and browse and lack of freeze in the woods. My deer sightings were the lowest they've ever been. I know they were there. I had 2 deer that I was focused on headed into season. 2 bucks that I was focused on. A nice 5-year-old and I believe he was 6 years old. He may have been 5 also. So let's just say for conversation, a couple of 5-year-olds. The one I took out with the bow a few weeks in the season. On kind of a unicorn hunt. I'm going to sit this area because I know it's good. I know it's a transition area. He may or may not be in here. And sure enough, he showed up. I killed him. And then I had the other one. He was in my back pocket. Not only the other 5-year-old, but a few other deer that I had on me for some reason. That particular 5-year-old disappeared the day before gun season. Now, this cat was on me every day, all day last year, most likely the year before. I had him all summer long, all winter the previous year. He was a homebody, 110%. He walked off of my property about 1.5 miles away. He ended up staying for the rest of the season. I had doe, I had food, I had water, I had everything important. But not only him, most of the good bucks I had on that property, whether they were previous years or new bucks, all disappeared before a gun. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen. So I pass no matter what. I'll pass nice 3. I'll pass a nice 4, no matter what. The chance of them coming back has got to be 1 in 20. It's so low, man, especially around here. So
That's
low.
crazy.
Yeah. And did you have a question?
Yeah, my question is, I've been talking to these guys a lot, and I want to eliminate my ground set, my footprint in the state land, but like they're saying, you can't. I can prevent mine, but I can't prevent anybody else's. And this year, I was up in the air about running trail cameras and just going in there because I know the spots now. Do I just go in there this year, do you think, or do I hang the trail cameras and have the inventory and know more about the area?
So you can't kill a big buck if there ain't a big buck there.
Tanner told me that.
Yeah. You guys know.
Because I asked him, I'm like, you get all these big deer on camera all the time. And I'm like, this is all I got. And he, like he said, he goes, well, maybe that's all that's there. He's like, keep looking around, and I finally found a couple spots with good deer on them. But I was in good spots in my head. And I'm like, man, there's got to be a big deer in here. And all I would get would like 4, 6s and spike horns, crotch horns, 5 points. I'm looking for something bigger. And I couldn't find that until I branched out into more spots like Tanner was telling me to do. And I ended up coming up on that. But now that I know where I killed my deer last year and where there are bigger deer, do you think that I should still run cameras to see that they're there, or just eliminate my scent and hope for the best?
Both. And the way I run things, no matter where I'm hunting, is I'll try to get some intel on the area. But what goes along super importantly with that intel is mitigating my scent. Cell cameras are great for that.
Yep.
Obviously, getting them up in the air, like the guys say, at least 1 stick up in the air. Keep an honest man honest. Criminals will do what criminals are going to do, but you'll keep an honest man honest. But mitigate your intrusion, right? And the most importantly, the other main thing I do, 10 and 2. I never touch the woods. When you come this time of year, June, July, when I'm out doing hunting chores and things of that nature, come July 1, it's only 10 and 2, man. I'm done. The likelihood of me seeing a deer or a mature deer between 10 and 2 is very, 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 very low. Very low. So it's only 10 and 2. But old guy that I know that doesn't hunt, he's never hunt, city guy, gave me the best information I've ever had. geez, Tom, he says, it seems as though you hunt where the deer are. It's a good job. A lot of these guys don't get deer, and you end up with deer. You're definitely hunting where the deer are. I've never heard, but you know what? It's also the smartest thing I ever heard. To kill
It really is. I
It
mean,
is.
it's that, it can be that simple sometimes. I mean, yeah.
It's stupid simple, man. To kill a big buck, you got to hunt where a big buck is. So let's say I'm you. I got 4 or 5 spots on state ground, some sort of public. I'm hanging 4 or 5 trail cams, maybe 10 trail cams if I can in a particular area. Going back to what you mentioned earlier about food plots, I'm 99% transitions, highways, intersections between bedding and food. And on public, if you get an idea where they're sleeping, you get an idea where they're traveling. I'm not going to be at the field edge where their main destination is at night. You know, most are going to be there before dark. And the big deer are still in the thicker areas, standing in 10 square feet
Observing.
for half an hour before dark. And if they made it for a few years on public land, they've realized that the wolves leave by dark. So they're going to take to a super tight, super nice area until they're 100% secure. So I'm pushing in, I don't want to say 2 bedding, but a solid place between bedding and their destination area. And noticing the little things in between, the little browse, the honeysuckle, the red fire, whatever they're feeding on in that area, I'm keying in on that, closer to bedding than to a destination plot. But I don't want to waste 2, 3, 4 hunts in an area if it's not showing bucks. I may double back to that in the rut if it's a super highway, a great, a great transition area for deer all over the place. But I'm going to find something I want to kill and put all my time and effort into it. Your likelihood of success on that is much, much higher. July and August, I don't want to say throw caution to the wind, but when I do cameras, like August 1st, I'll go out and drop 50, 60 cameras on 300 acres, just stupid amounts. It'll all be between 10 and 2. I'll wear scent-free clothing, and I'll put my boot bin in the truck. And when I get there, I'll have my boots still in carbon from last year, killing the scent. Am I leaving scent? Absolutely. But I won't pull those cameras until September 1st. I'll wait a solid 30 days to pull them, get every bit of information that I can out of them.
So, okay, because that was going to lead me to my next question is, after that point, September 1st, are you saying you pull your cameras completely and don't check them again, or
pull the cards rather? Yep.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
do you check them again prior to season, or do you pretty much try to stay out?
Yes, I will check them again prior to season, but the way that it's been going, I don't want to say been, maybe half of the time, I'll find a buck that I want to key in on. Oh, hey, I remember this buck. Man, he's back. He's 2 years older. Hey, I remember this buck from last year. Wow, he showed back up. I will. So I hunt 3, 4 different properties. Some are 25 acres, some are 230 acres. If I find something that I want to shoot, if I don't have extra cameras, I'll yank a couple. That's the other thing too. Talking about cameras on property, it's field edges, maybe a couple of transitions. I won't go any further than maybe 50 yards off of field edge. I can gather 99% of the information I need without stinking up that property, without going. You know what? It's without even going as deep as my stands. You know, if I got some shallow stands, I'll throw a camera there. I got the historical deer paths in a lot of places. I'll tell you a funny story about that later. But it all depends. But I'll try, if I find a deer that I like, I'll add a few extra cameras, maybe on accessory trails, but I'm still not going deep into the property. You know, a lot together in your mind over that. And then the weekend before season, however that falls, it's usually 3 weeks after September 1st, hypothetically, usually a few weekends later, I'll pull them again and either reaffirm my information or make up a different game plan.
Yeah.
I like that where your mindset is on everything is like you're saying, nothing's guaranteed. You can never be 100% scent free, but stacking the deck in your favor, minimizing everything that you can, like just trying to get all the things in your favor that you can do and help out as much as you can. You're helping yourself.
Mm.
Yeah. And that all goes back to what I mentioned earlier. 99% of my goal, even throughout the season, not to push deer, not to educate deer, not only for myself, but more importantly, for the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much, it's almost like a small army. I like to think of it, and it's exaggerated, but a small armory sitting on the border on my property.
Mm-hmm.
If I throw up one little thing, that deer's gone forever. Not only for this year, whether it be a 3 or 4 or 5 year old, not only this year, but he's gone forever. I got no bucks, for next year. So that's whether it's how I get in and out of a spot, me not going into a sanctuary or a bedding area, my scent, everything I do to mitigate my scent, which is the bare bones basics. Zeolite powder on my body, which is a clear white powder that eliminates your scent. Activated charcoal carbon on my boots and my clothes. I throw a little bit in the wash too with them, and that's just the basic stuff. You could take a jacket from Walmart for $40, and if you treat it right and you put a little bit of zeolite on your body, because no matter what, your body's going to stink at some point. That's also by how far you walk. You mitigate all that stuff. There's no $300 Sitka spring gear, early both 300 pants that are going to do any better than $25 camo sweatpants that you get from Walmart.
Yeah.
And like you said too, that might change my camera tactic a little bit this year. Like you were saying, you really just need to know that there's one there. So, not going in and pushing and everything. As long as you know he's there, then you can dissect from there.
And limiting your amount of times.
Yes,
It sounds to me like, right.
Don't push farther than you need to.
Yeah.
Yep. And don't go back. You get excited and you're like, shit, I better
let's
go
keep
check
going.
it every other week. Yeah. I mean,
deer are hard enough to kill. Don't give them any favors. Don't do them any favors.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is too, is we were talking about cameras a little bit earlier. These aren't, I'm not a photographer. I'm not sharing my my pictures with goddamn deer hunt. Show me a deer, show me a side view of a deer with a gut and a neck and some antlers. Show me some mass. Show me something that gets me excited for maturity. Last year, the deer that I killed was an absolute shit rack, but he looked like he lifted weights since he was born, and he was 5, 6.
Yeah, he was a toad. Yeah.
He had the stupidest rack. I called him the bull. He had brow tines that I think they're like 12 inches long. They swoop forward and then
That
tip.
picture I was showing, yeah.
Matches with his beams. He was actually had longer tines the year before. All of his tine length went into his damn brow tines that came up. But I was happier with that deer than with a 150-year-old 3-year-old. And he might have been a 120-inch 5-year-old.
Just a giant body, though.
Yeah. But like I said, cheap cameras, refurb cameras, whatever, and get my information figured out the best that I can.
Yeah, I'm showing him the picture of that brow tine one. He's clearly a mature deer.
He makes you look pretty small.
So Tom, you're one of those people that they would call a local legend, then, huh?
Yeah. That's a really funny story if you guys got a minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm crushing public ground when I first started hunting. I'm doing everything I can to shoot a doe or a spike buck, or God forbid I get a crotch horn or a 6 or 7 pointer that's 10 inches wide. Man, I'm happier than a pig in shit.
Yep.
So my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, her dad's a farmer, and he says, "Hey, yeah, you can hunt this land over here, this land over here." So I go out there and I'm trying my damnedest, man. I'm getting ran over by guys on these little pieces of woods, and there's shit all over the place, people everywhere. Not only me, he lets everybody hunt there, right?
Oh,
Yeah, hey, that's fine.
yeah.
I'm seeing deer like I've never seen before. This, once again, I'm only 5-6 years into it, self-taught, so any deer is a trophy to me at this point. And then one gun season. Now, I'm not a big fan of the gun. I had a 12 gauge, whatever, smooth bore, I think it was back in the day. He says, hey, me and my sons, we're going to hunt this piece of property. He goes, would you like to come with us, sit with the gun? I said, yeah, absolutely. So I go out there, and I'm still just I'm even worse with a gun than a common somebody in their first year right now. I'm just I'm just a mess. So I go to eat. They throw me in this old wooden stand, and let me tell you, there's deer all over the place. There's deer running everywhere. Doe shit. I'm like a fox in a hen house. I don't know what to shoot first. So I shoot a big mature doe. I think I had two doe tags in my pocket. I shoot a big mature doe. After I shoot her, man, I'm hooting and hollering. I'm so happy. Man, 3 minutes later, here comes another doe. Man, I shoot her. I'm holy shit. I'm in the promised, So I was very, very excited. I go, what? You got all this land. Why do you hunt here? He goes, no, I don't hunt that shit. He goes, that land's garbage. He goes, there's so many guys all over that stuff. He goes, this year I take care of for an old lady, so she lets me hunt it. He goes, so this is where we hunt. It's 230 acres. Oh, man, that's interesting. Who bow hunts it? He goes, I think there's a guy or two out back, an old timer here. Do you mind if I bow hunt this next year? I would love to try to bow hunt this. And he hems it. I've been with his daughter for like 10 years at this point, and I just found out about this property. Prick.
Just let me hunt it already.
So I'm still not too deep into the whole tree stand thing. I still got my 50-pound freaking lock on, hang on, and my tree pegs in my pocket, which is a whole different story. So he goes, yeah. So I tried to go out there in the summer the following year. I tried to go out in the summer to check it out. It's so overcome with briars, just nasty, impenetrable property, right? At the time, I didn't even have a trail camera. I think trail timers were still out at this point.
I was just going to ask you if you use those.
Yeah.
Oh, no, nothing. Absolutely nothing. We were going in blind back in the day, man.
Yeah.
And I didn't live there either, right? So I'm like half an hour, 40 minutes away. So it's not like I run there to scout fields and scout. And especially public land, right? I wasn't raised that way. There was no scouting on public land. You take a walk, see what you're seeing, and hope for the best.
Yep.
So to make a long story short, the following bow season comes. I heard that one of his sons went out and mowed the trails at the property so they could get around for gun season. It's about Halloween. So I said, you know what? Let me go give this spot a try. Like I said, that was a different time. I kind of didn't know what was where, my greenness and of course technology. I had no idea what was out there. All that I knew is these guys went out there with a gun and shot a couple deer in the ass every year, and if on one of them. So I remember one of them saying, either my father-in-law or brother-in-law, that there was a tree stand on top of an apple tree, right? They had like chained and ratchet strapped around a top limb of an apple tree that was crooked so you could sit 10 feet off the ground. So I think it was my first sit out there, my first or second sit ever out there. It was Halloween. It was 2004, Halloween night. Of course, ditched my wife. And it was so hot. At one point, I want to say it was 75, 80, 77 degrees something. Sun just beating on me. I was in the highest tree around. That was 10, 12 feet off the ground. Sun just beating on me. At one point, I was stripped down to a T-shirt, sitting on the platform of the stand, just trying to keep cool, asking myself, what the fuck am I doing out here?
Yeah.
So to make a long story short, okay, here comes dusk. Got about an hour left. The temperature drops 10 degrees. I'm watching this bunny 10 yards, 15 yards from the tree, watching this bunny bounce around. The bunny disappears. I hear a crunch. I'm like, man, it's a pretty big crunch for a bunny. Now, backpedal. I'm getting my balls broken by fellow hunters and my buddies for shooting doe, shooting spike, shooting fork horns, shooting any legal deer that walked by me for 5 years. I shot the sumbitch if I had a tag in my pocket. So I'm watching this bunny. Bunny disappears. I hear a crunch. I look up, and all I seen, the deer had its nose to the ground. There's a big bush and like an opening between two bushes. I see this rack pass, and it's the biggest rack I've ever seen in my life, right? And it just his nose and his rack, and his nose is like to the ground like a bloodhound. So rack and shoulders. I said, okay, that's a shooter deer. Holy shit. Stood up, got my little bow back, whatever. He took another step, just like every other deer that I've shot. I slipped one right behind his shoulder. It was perfect. Little rocket ultimate steel, which I still feel are some of the best broadheads ever. 7/8 of an inch, 3-blade conventional, fly perfect. Deer never know they were hit. So this thing jumps, takes off about 20 yards, looking around, and now I'm getting a good look at him. I said, holy shit, that's it's like a dream, you know, it's like unbelievable, right? So he walks about another 5 feet, looking around for like a bee that stung him, and he falls over in some tall weeds. I had never shot a racked buck in my life. So I got down, ran out of there, called a bunch of my buddies. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I shot this deer. I think he fell down. I don't know. So make a long story short, got my buddies, went back. I spent half an hour looking for this goddamn arrow. All I could think about was finding the arrow. That's what I thought. I got to find the arrow. I got to find the arrow. Couldn't find the arrow to save our lives, which is very odd. And finally, my buddy's like, Jesus Christ, you said you seen it fall over. Where'd it fall?
I would have ran.
It fell like literally 20, 30 yards away. Fell over there right by the bushes. He goes, let's go over there. Deader than a doornail. So my buddy and I tried to lift him up. We couldn't lift him up onto the four-wheeler. He was at one end, I was at the other. We couldn't lift him up. So he hopped on the four-wheeler, ran back up front to the road, and I had another buddy up there. We got him and his brother. So now there's 4 of us heading back to pick up this deer, try to get it on the back rack of the four-wheeler. Make a long story, each one of us ended up grabbing a leg to get this thing on the back of the four-wheeler.
Holy shit.
But I didn't gut him. There was no thoughts of gutting anything else. We ran him over to somebody's house. He was 275 pounds on the hoof, or on the 233.5-inch neck. And he ended up, his gross score was 167.
Wow.
And that was an 04.
Yeah. And he ended up going in the book at 156 after deductions. One side was a lot different. He's actually right there, if you could see.
That's awesome.
Unreal. We might need a tour.
I was gonna say, you might towards the end we might have to have you go around and just show a couple of them.
You'll be on our episode of Whitetail Cribs.